Wisconsin Eye's 2014 election coverage is brought to you by the Wisconsin Hospital Association. For over 90 years, a valued voice for Wisconsin hospitals, supporting high-quality, high-value care in communities like yours.
Wisconsin Eye coverage of the 2014 elections continues. We're interviewing State Representative Ed Brooks of Reedsburg. He's a Republican seeking re-election in Assembly District 50. Ed, welcome back to Wisconsin Eye.
Thank you.
Wisconsin Eye appreciates the support of the Wisconsin Hospital Association, which represents more than 139 hospitals and health systems, for making these candidate interviews possible. Ed, you're going for your fourth term. Let me ask you this as a first question. What areas have you worked hardest in? I know you're a former dairy farmer, maybe still are, but you also chair a urban issues committee. So what issues have you worked hardest on?
The Urban and Local Affairs Committee is kind of a natural fit, because in real life I'm also a town chairman and have been one for probably 28, 30 years, something like that, a long time. And so local government's important to me. Regularly I'll stop at different village halls or city halls just to make sure that what we're doing is on the right track, and that they understand what we're doing. And if they have issues, sometimes the local municipality may have a grant and they've done their part of it, and now they're waiting to get money from the state, and sometimes we can expedite that because maybe there's been a drop in the chain of command stuff. And so local government's important to us. Agriculture, as you mentioned, I'm a farmer. We recently got rid of the cows, but we're a farmer or at risk taker from that standpoint. And so ag issues are important to us, whether it's the state has limited role as far as commodity prices and things like that, but they have a major role. Implements of husbandry was one thing that it really wasn't on the table, but there were laws there, and I think a lot of farmers didn't realize that. And as implements grew in size and weight, they just felt, well, there's no limit. Well, there was a limit, and there always has been, and this kind of clarified that. It raised the limits, but if you violate the new high limit, you pay a penalty back to what the old limit was. And so it has some teeth in it. This first year has been a learning curve for farmers and, well, implement dealers too, because you get into height and width of implements, everybody is affected, and it goes way back to the production part. If you can get it under a bridge, you're good as far as height goes, but there are lighting requirements, and so it's been an educational year. But again, that's something that's dear to me, because I understand that a manure tanker with a set of triples on, not duals, but triples, they're going to weigh much, much more than what even the new weight limits are. And so we have to get the understanding out there. With this comes additional technology. Some of the large dairies are now pumping liquid nutrients through irrigation systems, as opposed to hauling down the road and things like that. And that, as a local official, that saves my roads. But again, those are the primary areas. I'm business oriented because farmers are business people, and so
has frac sand mining is that an issue in your district, sir?
It's close to it. There was one that opened up. Was getting ready to open. They did a lot of stripping and stuff. It was just out of Camp Douglas, and the laws were followed, but again, there wasn't the connection there because it's adjacent to the village, but yet the village had no input into it. And things were done properly. So that maybe is something we have to look at. And every county has a different set of zoning requirements.
Yes.
In Sauk County, frac sand mining would be under conditional use, which goes to kind of a quasi-public hearing legally, under oath testimony, things like that. And there's a board that's appointed and elected, and they would set the conditions so that the neighbors would have a chance to come in. Municipalities or actual business neighbors come in and say, well, we don't want this to operate 24/7, or we're concerned about dust. And then the committee would be able to take a look at that testimony. If they feel is valid, they could put those conditions into the conditional use. But not all counties have that, and so that's the issue.
Should the state write minimal standards for frac sand mines, Ed, or is that purely a local control issue?
I think the states should. We have a livestock siting bill, Steve, which has worked well because it sets a base standard for all areas. If the locals have a unique concern that they can scientifically document, they can make those changes. And I think frac sand is so terribly emotional,
yes,
and some factual and some whimsical, that we have to make certain that we have the right combination of things. And a statewide standard with yet local input, I think, would be a good direction to go.
Okay, let's talk about issues that are going to be part of the next state budget, assuming you're reelected. When it comes to debating school aid, what are you going to push for in the next state budget, Representative?
Well, I'm not an advocate for school choice.
You're not? Okay.
No, but I understand it, Steve. If I was a parent in Milwaukee, or actually even Madison here, which is kind of we think of Madison as kind of a pristine chapel sort of thing because of progressivism stuff, but the achievement gap is not what I like. If you're a minority, there's 27% difference between that.
Yes.
And so those are reasons that I can understand the need for school vouchers, that sort of thing, or parental choice, which is a really thing. My concern is rural schools. I served on a task force this past year.
You served on the Speaker's task force?
Yeah.
That came up with recommendations?
Came up with a number of recommendations. Some probably will come into the budget. Others will be separate bills, that sort of thing, and some probably won't get implemented. But again, it's a matter of money. My priorities are with public schools. That's where my children went. That's where I support. I've served on many local committees because of space needs and things like that. So I understand rural schools, but I also, like I say, am sympathetic or empathetic perhaps to the need for school choice.
What about the governor's call this summer that Wisconsin should withdraw from the Common Core standards, sir?
That is the most difficult issue that I've studied that extensively, and I have concerned citizens that are very much against it, but I also have the teaching community that says no. I have the school boards that say, well, we still have local control over choices are made. It's something that's ongoing. I'm a conservative. I don't want to waste the money that's been spent already. But if we have to change the definition or something going forward, I'd be willing to take a look at that. But again, there's so much emotion, kind of like frac sand. There is nobody. You either come in with your fists clenched for it or against it, and we have to get away from that. Let's look at the facts and see where can we go from here. Not wasting what we've done, but can we go ahead and maybe retitle it, but still maintain the local control? That's where I'd come from.
Farmers like you in your district need good roads to get their products out and to get all that heavy equipment in and out. Yet, you're aware that there's a projected $600 million to $700 million deficit in the transportation fund. How would you make it up?
Well, there are many ways, and probably aren't going to make it all up at one time. But we have to take a look at a number of things. The first thing is for you and our viewers to approve the referendum. That's going to say a trust fund is really a trust fund. When I used to feel quite comfortable pumping gas into my vehicles and realizing that 35 cents was going to go to repair the potholes I drove over. But that hasn't been the case because that fund has not been a trust fund in a true sense. And so if the constitutional referendum passes, then any money designated to the Highway Trust Fund will stay in the Highway Trust Fund. That's step one. That's not going to solve our problem, though, Steve, because the deficit, as you mentioned, is major. I think we have to look at all the different things, whether it be a toll road, whether it be a mileage fee, which may not go anywhere, whether it's increased registration costs. And again, all the little things do add up to a sizable total when you do things.
The gas tax, 30.9 cents a gallon, hasn't been raised since 2006. Are you willing to consider raising that, sir?
Yes, I am willing to consider. I'm willing to go back to indexing.
You are?
I have not signed a do not raise taxes. But if you look at my record, I haven't been raising taxes. But again, everything has its purpose. And I think there's a unanimity out there that says our roads need some more attention. And again, the farm to market, which you prefaced, are certainly in that condition.
The governor this summer said, I think we should drug test those that are getting unemployment benefits and food stamps. Do you agree with the governor, sir?
Yeah. The constituents I talk to very much feel that way. Because if you get a job, one thing we haven't talked about is jobs in the 50th district. And ever since I've been there have been signs up saying welders need it. So we have to get the right technical level. But an employer basically wants somebody who will show up for work, somebody who passed a drug test, and then somebody that's dependable. And I think drug testing of people that aren't working is just as critical as those who are.
It's those tech colleges that will be training those welders that your local businesses can't find. The governor wants to freeze tuition, not only in the University of Wisconsin system, but on the tech colleges for 2 years. Do you support that, sir?
I'd have to look at it in detail. We did do a buy down on the vocational school. I think that's a proper word. We reduced the levy to fill it in with general funds, general funds from the the state treasury, so that the mill levy would reduce by 0.8 of a mill, I think it was. And again, to keep education affordable, there. In the 50th district, I'm not the spokesman, so I can't release things, but there is a group that's dealing with the vocational school, the high school, and some employers. And I think this is what we need, because when you have the employers involved, you kind of get the right focus on what they need for a trained person. And again, they're quite general, that somebody's dependable, somebody who shows up for class is probably going to show up for work, and somebody who can pass the drug test and is trainable, because we can have all the tech schools in the state offering welding, but yet when they go to industry, every industry perhaps has a different type of equipment and that sort of thing. And so teach them the fundamentals, and then the fine-tuning will be done by the employer.
Now, you're running for your 4th term, so you were around in 2011 when there was a rather large deficit. If there's another deficit of more than $1 billion, do I hear you saying you don't want to raise taxes to fix it? You'd rather fix it in other ways, Representative?
I think it'd be a combination, Steve. Raising taxes, I think, suppresses the economy. I think the easiest, not the easiest, but the best way out of a deficit situation is to grow the economy. And that's one of from day one under Governor Walker, that's one of the things I've been trying to do, trying to get state government to be more business friendly. I've got people in the district that want to replace a piece of equipment that's critical to their operation. Identical equipment coming in, but yet the permitting process just seems prohibitive. And it's the same size equipment, the emissions are the same or less. They should be able to do that quicker. I see farmers that want to retile some farmland, and they get the permit from NRCS, and they've got maps showing, yes, this was tiled previously because of wetlands. You can't do any new material, but it's been done previously, so they're allowed to maintain it. But yet they get the one permit from NRCS, which should be enough, but then the DNR will come in, and perhaps in some situations, I know in Sauk County, then there's county involved. And so simplicity, make government more friendly.
Okay. Yeah. The bill to legalize medical marijuana is going to be reintroduced, and now the states of Washington and Colorado have legalized recreational marijuana. Your position on those issues, sir?
It's not the biggest issue in the 50th district.
I understand. Probably haven't even been asked about it, maybe.
Yeah, there's 1 or 2 people out there who like it. I think every session we have people that come in on the medical marijuana. We did pass the bill on oil that could be used for
cannabis oil.
Yeah, cannabis oil
to treat
seizures. For seizures. And again, I've had good families come in. They aren't somebody with a drug culture. There's somebody with a child that has seizures, and they're concerned about their welfare. And the medical drugs we give them are so harsh that they sometimes cause brain damage. So these people are sincere, and we passed the bill, but there's still problems getting that implemented. So I guess until we get that implemented, that's where I would stay. Recreational is way down on my list of priorities. Medical, we take a look at, but again, the medical community, which is what I would look to. I think the lack of consistency in product is one thing they're concerned about, and also the lack of research, peer-reviewed research. And so, again, the oil, I'm okay with. I'd like to see that implemented so we can see if it's working the way it was intended and the way it's been researched. But the others, recreational is a ways down. Medical is higher on the list, but it's not in the top 10.
Okay, and it's always it's an issue every session. First offense, drunken driving. Should it be a crime, sir?
No.
Why?
I think, well, it is a crime, Steve, if there's children in the car and if there's an accident or injury involved.
There are mitigating circumstances,
right,
yes.
Yeah, and that I'm okay with. But I think somebody who made a mistake in judgment should be given a second choice. There was a time when the OWI people were listed in the paper, and there were names you recognize, but you never saw those names again. So I'm of the belief that let's give them an opportunity to make things right. Now, I have a big problem with 5th, 6th, 7th time offenders, and everybody does. And I asked the author of the bill, the drunk driving bill, I think it was maybe Representative Mason, and not sure it was him. But anyway.
Could have been Jim Ott. Jim
had some that didn't get passed. This was the earliest one, and then it's been subject to revision. But the author felt that the statute was right, that judges were misinterpreting some of it. And again, you get into mitigating circumstances. So, but as far as first-time offenders, I would say no, not at this time.
Then finally, I want to give you a chance to highlight any differences that you want to identify between you and your opponent on November 4, Representative.
Well, okay. I guess we can start out by saying I've been in elective government for 30 years. I've been, or longer actually, and I've been in state government for 6 years. I think the people that have endorsed me, the groups that have endorsed me, show that I have a broad base of support from different sides. The National Federation of Independent Businesses, which is a lot of small Main Street businesses, as well as the Wisconsin Manufacturing and Commerce have endorsed me. I've been endorsed by Right to Life, as my opponent is not, and so I feel good about that. Ag groups, yes, I've been supported by many of them. Pork producers, corn growers, Wisconsin Farm Bureau. And so as I look at these, I've been endorsed by a social workers group. And so I can't be all bad, Steve. But no, the diversity in the portfolio I have on endorsements, I think is important to me, because that means I'm looking at broad issues. And I think the fact that I've ran a business, I've owned property, I'm aware of the burden that property taxes can put on people that are in a starter home with young family, as well as on the other end of the spectrum, the people that are empty nesters that are trying to stay in their home until they're ready to move to a different setting. Those things come into my mind when we look at property tax increases or property tax cuts. And so I understand that part, because I've been there, I've been doing that. And so I think those are probably the biggest differences.
Very good, thank you. State Representative Ed Brooks of Reedsburg is a Republican seeking re-election in Assembly District 50. The election is November 4. Ed, thanks for talking to Wisconsin Eye.
Well, thank you, and thanks to your viewers.
Thank you.